40, it hits you like a ton of bricks, even when you think you're prepared. Society paints this picture of success, stability, the peak of your career. And for many of us, especially men, our identity is so intertwined with our work. We're the providers, the achievers. Our value, often subconsciously, is measured by our professional accomplishments. So, what happens when the very thing that defines you, the dream job you work so hard for, starts to feel like a crushing weight? What happens when the fire you once had dwindles to a flickering ember and the daily grind becomes a soul-crushing burden? You might be experiencing burnout. I remember when it first started creeping in. It wasn't a sudden explosion, more like a slow leak. I was a partner at a well-respected law firm. By all external measures, I had made it. The corner office, the impressive salary, the respect of my colleagues. It was everything I thought I wanted, everything I had worked for since I was a kid. My dad always said, "A man needs to provide." That was drilled into me, and I was providing, handsomely. But inside, something was shifting. The long hours, the constant pressure to perform, the endless stream of demanding clients, it all started to feel different. It wasn't just tiredness, it was a deeper, more pervasive exhaustion. I'd wake up in the morning, dreading the day, even though, logically, I knew I was good at my job. I was successful. But the joy was gone, replaced by this gnawing sense of obligation, a feeling that I was trapped on a treadmill I couldn't get off. My wife noticed it, before I did, of course. She'd comment on how stressed I seemed, how little time I was spending with the kids, but I brushed it off. "It's just a busy period," I'd say. "Things will calm down soon." But they never did. The busy periods just blended into one long, continuous stretch of pressure. I'd come home late, eat dinner in front of the TV, and then crash, only to wake up and do it all again. My kids were growing up, and I was missing it. I was so focused on providing for them that I was missing out on actually being with them. The classic signs were there. Looking back, the cynicism. For one, I started to become incredibly critical of everything. My colleagues, the clients, even the legal system itself. Everything felt pointless. What was the point of all this hard work if I wasn't even enjoying it? Then there was the emotional detachment. I felt like I was going through the motions, just ticking boxes. I wasn't really present in my life, either at work or at home. I was physically there, but mentally I was a million miles away, lost in this fog of exhaustion and disillusionment. I remember one specific case that really highlighted this. It was a complex corporate merger, high stakes, lots of money involved. It was exactly the kind of case I used to thrive on. But this time, I just felt numb. I didn't care about the details. I didn't care about the outcome. I just wanted it to be over. I remember sitting in a meeting, listening to my colleagues discuss the intricacies of the deal, and feeling like I was watching a play. Like I was an observer, not a participant. It was a strange, unsettling feeling. It wasn't just the big things either. It was the little things too. I used to enjoy the intellectual challenge of the law, the strategic thinking, the problem solving. But now, even the smallest tasks felt overwhelming. I'd find myself procrastinating, putting things off until the last minute, even though I knew that would only add to my stress. It was like I was sabotaging myself. The physical symptoms started to manifest as well. I was constantly tired, even after a full night's sleep, which, admittedly, wasn't happening all that often. I started getting headaches. My stomach was always upset, and I seemed to catch every bug that went around. My body was telling me something was wrong, but I was too busy, too focused on my work, to listen. There was a period where I started to rely more heavily on alcohol. Just a couple of drinks after work, to unwind, to take the edge off. It started as a way to relax, but it quickly became a habit. It wasn't full-blown alcoholism, but it was definitely a crutch, a way to numb the feelings I didn't want to deal with. Looking back, it's clear I was burning out, but at the time, I didn't recognize it. I was so caught up in the pressure to succeed, to provide, to be the man I thought I was supposed to be, that I ignored all the warning signs. I thought I was just going through a rough patch, that if I just pushed through, things would get better. But they didn't. They got worse. It wasn't some dramatic breakdown that finally forced me to confront the issue. It was something much quieter, much more subtle. It was a Sunday afternoon. I was supposed to be working on a brief, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I sat at my desk, staring at the screen, feeling this overwhelming sense of dread. And then, out of nowhere, my son walked in. He was about 10 years old at the time. He just wanted to show me something he'd built with his Legos. And I snapped at him. I don't even remember what I said, but it was harsh. And I saw the look on his face, the hurt, the confusion, and in that moment, I saw myself. I saw what I had become, a stressed out, emotionally unavailable father, a man who was so focused on his work that he was neglecting the most important things in his life. That was the wake-up call. It wasn't the work itself. It was the way I was approaching it, the way I was letting it consume me. I realized that I needed to make some changes, not just for myself, but for my family. It wasn't an easy process. It took time and a lot of self-reflection. I started by acknowledging the problem, admitting to myself and to my wife that I was burning out, that I needed help. Talking to her was huge. Just voicing my feelings, my fears, made a difference. It was like a weight lifted. I started to prioritize my well-being. I started exercising regularly, even just going for a run a few times a week. It helped clear my head, reduce stress, and gave me a sense of accomplishment outside of work. I started to pay attention to my sleep, making sure I was getting enough rest. And I cut back on the drinking. It wasn't about quitting altogether, but about being more mindful of my consumption. I started to set boundaries with work. This was probably the hardest part, learning to say no, to delegate, to prioritize. It meant leaving the office at a reasonable time, even if it meant leaving some work unfinished. It meant turning off my phone at night so I could actually be present with my family. I started to rediscover my hobbies, things I used to enjoy before work took over my life. I picked up my guitar again, started reading more, and even joined a local hiking group. It was important to have something to look forward to, something that wasn't related to work. Most importantly, I started to reconnect with my family. I made a conscious effort to spend more time with my wife, Nika, and kids. We started having family dinners again. We went on weekend outings, and I started attending my kids' sporting events. It wasn't about being the perfect father. It was about being present, being there, being emotionally available. It wasn't a quick fix. There were setbacks, times when I slipped back into old habits, but I kept at it. Slowly, gradually, things started to change. I started to feel more energized, more engaged, more present. The joy started to come back, not just in my work, but in my life. Looking back, I realized that burnout wasn't just about the job. It was about me. It was about the way I was living my life. It was about the expectations I was placing on myself, the pressure I was putting myself under. It was about the way I defined myself as a man. It was about the need to provide, yes, but also about the need to be present, to be a father, to be a husband, to be myself. It's a lesson I learned the hard way, and it's a lesson I'm still learning. It's a constant process, a continuous effort to maintain balance, to prioritize, to be mindful of my own needs. It's a journey, not a destination. There will be times when I feel the pull of old habits, the pressure to achieve, to perform, to be the man I thought I was supposed to be. But now I'm more aware of the warning signs. I'm more attuned to my own needs, both physical and emotional. I'm more willing to ask for help, to set boundaries, to prioritize my well-being. One of the biggest shifts for me has been redefining what it means to be a man. It's not just about being the provider. It's about being present, being emotionally available, being a good father, a good husband, a good friend. It's about being true to myself, even if that means stepping outside of traditional gender roles. I remember a conversation I had with my dad a few years after let's call it my readjustment period. He was asking me about work, about my career, and I told him that I was happy, that I had found a better balance in my life, that I was spending more time with my family, and he looked at me a little confused and said, "But are you still working as hard?" And I smiled and said, "Dad, I'm working smarter, not harder." And he didn't quite get it. He came from a generation where a man's worth was measured by the hours he put in, the sacrifices he made. But I think, deep down, he understood. He saw that I was happy, and that, ultimately, was what mattered most. It's not about giving up on ambition. It's not about becoming lazy or complacent. It's about finding a healthier, more sustainable way to pursue your goals. It's about recognizing that your worth is not tied to your job title or your salary. It's about finding meaning and purpose beyond your work. It's also about accepting that life is messy, imperfect, and unpredictable. There will be setbacks, disappointments, and unexpected detours. That's okay. It's part of the journey. It's about learning to embrace the imperfections, to laugh at your mistakes, to pick yourself up and keep moving forward. One of the things that has helped me the most is connecting with other men who are going through similar experiences, talking about these things, sharing our struggles, our fears, our hopes. It's incredibly validating. It helps to know that you're not alone, that other men are also grappling with these issues, these feelings of uncertainty and self-doubt. There's this idea that men are supposed to be strong, silent, and stoic, that we're not supposed to talk about our feelings. But that's just not true. We all have emotions. We all struggle. And it's okay to admit that. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be vulnerable. In fact, I'd argue that it's essential. It's in those moments of vulnerability that we truly connect with each other, that we build meaningful relationships. It's in those moments that we discover our true strength. It's also important to remember that midlife is not a crisis. It's a transition. It's a time for reflection, reassessment, and renewal. It's an opportunity to create a life that is more authentic, more meaningful, and more fulfilling. It's not about trying to recapture your youth. It's about embracing the wisdom and experience that you've gained over the years. It's about recognizing that the best is yet to come. It's about learning to appreciate the simple things in life, the joy of a walk in the woods, the laughter of your children, the warmth of a loving embrace. It's about finding happiness in the everyday moments. It's about living in the present moment, appreciating the here and now. It's about letting go of the past and embracing the future. It's about being true to yourself, living a life that is aligned with your values. It's about finding your purpose, your passion, your calling. And it's about being kind to yourself, treating yourself with compassion and understanding, recognizing that you're doing the best you can. It's a journey, this thing called life, and it's not always easy, but it's worth it, every step of the way, especially when you learn to let go of the need to be perfect, to be the man you thought you were supposed to be, and embrace the man you truly are. It's in those moments of authenticity, of vulnerability, of self-acceptance that you find true freedom. And that, my friend, is more valuable than any dream job, any external achievement, any measure of success. It's about being real. It's about being you. And that's enough.